Jim Colucci is here to tell us about his book, which is a huge fan favorite, and it's the Q Guide to the Golden Girls.
Yes.
This book, oh my gosh, I remember when this book came out, everybody was talking about it. Just because, I mean, the Golden Girls are like iconic. They really are, like, you know, majorly
For so many
iconic.
communities, gays, you know, young college girls today
Absolutely.
act like they're the Beatles when the women would
serious
appear
stuff.
somewhere. Yeah.
And this is like so much fun because it's got like a bunch of like little like, you know, facts and really great like tidbits about the show itself as the show. But there's also behind the scenes things going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I researched how the show came to be, which, you know, it's an unusual show. First of all, when do you ever see a show about old people? Ever. A movie about old people?
No. Well, I
mean,
want to see Melrose in the Golden Age. Melrose plays.
I think we may get there. By the
Melrose,
time
yeah.
they get this one working.
Melrose
I think,
plays
how
the
old will Amanda be?
geriatric
100?
crowd. Yeah, Mary. You know, that's what I want to see. Yeah.
We may get to see that. But by the, you know, a show about old people and a show that was a hit comedy on a Saturday night. When has there been a comedy or any show that the network programs originally on a Saturday night?
And that
just doesn't happen anymore.
That cast.
Dream
is
Team
Perfect.
cast.
Yeah. Did you get to meet them?
I met everyone except for Estelle. Because Estelle was not well even by the time I was doing the book. But I did get to meet the other three ladies, as well as a lot of the guest stars and a lot of the other people behind the scenes. And Herb Edelman had passed away. At the time I was doing the book, he was the only person gone. Now we've lost Estelle and Bea.
Did they hate each other?
Estelle and Bea didn't. No, they loved
Really?
each other. That mother-daughter relationship, they really did love each other.
My ex is a big fan of the Golden Girls, and it was just one of those things, like he had every single DVD.
Yeah.
And so I had the joy of revisiting them and just realized what a great show it was. It really was so fantastic. Until they went into that weird...
Golden Palace.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, kind of a
watch
disaster.
that.
Yeah, no one did. Kind of a disaster.
I wasn't the only one then.
No, you weren't the only one. You weren't alone.
Thank God. I used to watch this show religiously.
Oh, you still can, because it's on 2 different cable networks 6 times a day. It's
All
a
the
ridiculous
time,
amount
all
of
the time.
airings.
I think this is something I'm going to have to add to my library. I'm serious. This is such a good show.
So many people have. Now, what was like the most interesting thing that you found that you had to put in the book that you were just like, it really blew you away when you found out about it?
Well, I mean, one thing that it was blown away when I found out, and this is something that some people know, is that Betty White and Rue McClanahan switched roles after they were
Oh.
cast. Betty White was originally going to play Blanche, and Rue was going to play Rose.
Wow.
And
I can't even imagine that.
yeah, well, you know, you can actually, if you think about it, it makes sense, because Rue McClanahan played, if you ever saw Maude, she
Right.
played a mousier neighbor.
Yes.
And so she would be more sweet and innocent like
Yeah.
Rose. And Betty White was best known at the time for the Mary Tyler Moore Show, in which she played the man-hungry Sue Ann Nivens.
Yes.
So they were really playing, they were cast according to type. And it was only because the director of the pilot, who didn't even go on to be the director of most of the series, said, you know, one day during rehearsal, let's try something. And he said,
Oh,
switch
wow.
places, and it just stuck. I mean, now Rue talks about in the book how when she was cast, she really didn't want to be Rose at all. But it was a choice of either that or nothing, because Betty had already been cast as Blanche. And so she said, okay, I'll take it. And she had in the back of her mind, oh, I hope someone thinks to switch this. And then they did.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's so weird because it's like, you know, now when we look at the show and we see the show, it's like, you know, how could we see it any other way?
I know. But you know what? They're all so good, it would have worked the other way, too.
Yeah.
Definitely, absolutely. Are we getting a call? Because if you guys want to call in, the phone lines are open, and you certainly can call in. And if you have any questions for Jim about the book or anything, because like Jim is a very talented man and does many things. You also have.
Are you a publicist by any chance? Can I bring you around to say that?
I do have that publicity
Thank
skill.
you. Thank you.
I do have that skill. But you also do a radio show, don't you?
I do. I do a weekly segment on the Frank DeCaro Show. My partner is Frank DeCaro from Sirius OutQ Radio.
The infamous Frank.
The infamous Frank DeCaro, who also had been on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart for so long, doing a pretty pioneering gay movie review. And so I do a TV report on his show once a week. So we talk Golden Girls and a lot of other stuff, too.
Now, what's that like working with your partner?
You know, it started out, we have a
Because I'd
gag.
kill mine if I had one.
It's interesting. It's interesting. We have a gag between us and the other the co-host of the show, Doria Biddle, that I'm never going to have one for the real. Because what always happens, and you know, Sirius Radio, you can say anything. You can say whatever swears come to mind.
You want here too.
Yes, so you know, trust me, I'm used to that. And it started out where I would try to be very professional and put on a radio voice, thinking, okay, maybe this will turn to something. And invariably, all the calls are like, so when Frank farts in the morning, and then we get it. So it's a mix. My report always ends up being a mix of television news and the Bickersons. Like, and then you didn't flush the toilet, and then it's a lot of poop. It's a lot of
that's
poop.
why that would suck.
Yeah.
That's exactly why that would suck.
And so every week, Doria says, like in the middle of my report, oh, there's another one that can't go in the reel.
So when Frank farts in the morning.
Yeah, it's. So let's talk Golden Girls. It's tough.
Now, what's really interesting is that the book, you're still doing all these signings and appearances for the book, and you released the book a while back, and the fandom still is roaring over the series. You think maybe you'd want to do like a follow-up? Do you think that maybe there's something like that in the works?
I do want to do a follow-up. You know, the history of this book is that I had always loved TV books, you know, I guess loving TV too much, and had collected them.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, you know, in the days before the internet, if you loved a show, there wasn't such a readily available wealth of information about a show. You needed, if there was a book, that was it. And so I would often buy books about my favorite TV shows, and they usually suck. Because they're usually written like for a dime by someone I don't think is a native English speaker. And I mean, they're just terrible. And I always wanted to write a good one. And so I always wanted to write about the Golden Girls. I ended up doing a different show. I did a Will and Grace book before the Golden Girls. But I always thought somebody would beat me to it. I mean, you know, I had this idea when I was a kid when the show was on. And so when I finally got to the point where I had written my Will and Grace book and I wanted to do another project, I couldn't believe, having researched it, that there were no books out there on the Golden Girls. There has since been, I think someone self-published a trivia book and whatever, but there is no, like, you know, actual history of the show. And so I went around shopping it around, and it's very interesting how publishers, to complain about them for a minute. Publishers, let me get on my soapbox. Publishers love to brag about how they know nothing about television. And what has been the pattern a lot of times with Golden Girls is that we will approach, my agent will approach either a young woman or a young gay guy at a publishing house who will say, oh my God, Golden Girls, what a great idea. I still watch it 6 times a day, the same things we've been saying. And then it works its way up to somebody in, like, you know, the back office in marketing who says, that show's been off the air for 15 years. What are you talking about? Who doesn't get it? And so Allison Books, the publisher of this book, was really receptive, and they're a gay publisher. So I have amassed, you know, from interviewing people who are even no longer with us, like Arthur, I've amassed, you know, hours and hours, like hundreds of interviews, literally. Sure, and I will probably do in a larger book. What I did for the Q Guide to the Golden Girls is I kind of was able to focus on, and I thought this would be a smaller focus than it was, and then I learned. I would focus on the episodes that had some particular gay appeal. Whether they...
Which is every single episode of the series.
Hello, I found that out. I found that out.
Those are like all our nanas.
I know. But I thought, okay, I'll concentrate on the ones that have gay guest stars or gay characters or a gay joke, or maybe even just a hunky guest star who went on to something. And when I made that list, you know, out of the 7 seasons worth of episodes, there were about 50 episodes that had some specific gay appeal. Most other shows have like 1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was incredible.
Amazing.
The amount of gay characters who showed up, the gay jokes they would make. I had my work cut out for me. I thought this book would be about that thick. I thought it would be a 1/10 of that, and it was a lot of work. It was great.
Doesn't Mark Cherry, the creator of
Yes.
Desperate Housewives, did any work?
He got
on
his
Golden
start
Girls?
on that show. That was his first job. And I talked to him extensively for the book, as well as Mitchell Hurwitz, who then went on to create Arrested Development. It was a very fertile ground for a lot of writers who went on to do really big things on their own.
Big projects. Oh, that's fantastic. What's really great also about the book is that it's your perspective, but it's still sort of like it sounds like you. Like when you read it, it's your perspective, but it's still so entertaining to read.
Well, thank
it.
you. Yeah. I mean, you know, what's more fun than editorializing and saying whether you think this episode's good? I mean, and also, you know, no one's perfect. I think there were a couple episodes that took on gay characters where it was what would today not be considered very PC. And so it's interesting to look at it from a at the time it was 2006 perspective, look at an episode from 1986 about how they treated the gay guy and they, you know, laugh at him. But it was still, nobody else was even having a gay guy on the show in 1986. So it was, you know, it's still pretty incredible.
So the show was particularly cutting edge.
It was.
Which we kind of like take for granted because it's, you know, sitcom.
So funny.
Yeah, but sitcom comedies, situation comedy always sort of like gives you that idea that it should have a certain kind of like sort of like a story in it that's going to have sort of like a teaching component.
And a lot of them do. And, you know, Hollywood's a liberal place, and so a lot of sitcoms throughout time have been the first to tackle certain questions. But when it comes to certain questions that affect the gay community, Golden Girls was really on the front. When you think about AIDS, Designing Women and Golden Girls were the two shows, the two sitcoms in the 80s that were the first to tackle AIDS and have characters talk about it or fear it.
Sure.
and Designing Women had a character who died of AIDS. So it was just, the reason why, according to the executive producers that I spoke to, said that they, themselves love to have a venue to discuss things.
Absolutely.
And they said, what better and safer way to discuss taboo topics
than in comedy.
than out of the mouths of four old ladies.
Absolutely. And we have a caller who has a question. Hi, caller.
Hello.
Hi.
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 I wanted to know for Jim Colucci, what was his inspiration for writing the book?
I always, when I grew up wanting to live in a Golden Girls type world, the idea that Dorothy Zbornak could say some of the smart-ass things that she said to people and not get punched, I just thought, I want to crawl inside that TV and live on their lanai. And I think that's always the inspiration for when I love a show. I kind of want to live inside it. So I guess this is the closest I could get. And it's also the closest writing gig you can get to at least writing about a show that's no longer on the air. So, it's just pure love of the show that I wanted to do it. And, it ended up being that I had an excuse to meet all of these people who had long been my idols, whether they were idols like B. Arthur and Betty White and Rue McClanahan as actors, or even because I'm a writer myself, people like Mark Cherry and Mitchell Hurwitz. Oh my God, I get to meet them and talk about this project we love together. So
yeah, that's fantastic.
It was a labor of love, but for selfish reasons.
I just think that you did a wonderful job on the book, and continue the great success.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, caller. Yeah, that must be such a such a really great gift to write and do and have something come to fruition that you just really love.
Yeah, and literally, I had moments, and I had to stalk B. Arthur to get her to sit down.
That's great.
And so when it finally works, when a successful stalk comes to fruition, and I was sitting in B. Arthur's living room with her, and she had her bare feet up on the coffee table, and she'd poured these giant balloon goblets of wine for us to drink. Oh, always bare feet. And she had poured the largest balloon goblets of wine I've ever seen. She emptied a wine bottle into 2 glasses. And I had to sit there slurping wine with B. Arthur, and I'm just, that's when you have those moments like, I love my job. This is pretty surreal.
That's awesome.
Like, how did this happen? I went from watching the show in 1985 to sitting in her living room in 2006.
And being a part of it.
And being a part of it, just even for an hour with her, however long.
It is like being a part of the show. Because it is. It's a guide to all the seasons, right? It covers.
Yes, it covers all the seasons. It does not cover Golden Palace. Don't worry.
Thank God, because that was a really that was a frightening disaster.
It was kind of a disaster.
Jim, where can people get the book?
Amazon.com.
Amazon.com.
It's in a lot of Barnes and Nobles and Borders and gay bookstores across the country as well.
Absolutely. Are you making any local New York City appearances?
I have in the past. I don't have any coming up, but I just did Lambda Rising Bookstore in Washington, D.C. That's a great place to get it if you're in the Washington area. It's actually been the top seller, the longest running bestseller in Lambda Rising's history.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm really happy about that. They're a great place to get
there. And if people want to know more about what you're up to, where can they find out what you're doing?
They can find out on my website, which is jimcolucci.com, or you can go to my blog about all kinds of television, mustheartv.blogspot.com.
And they can also hear you on
the Frank DeCaro Show.
Frank's show, which is daily, isn't it?
Which is daily, Monday to Friday. I'm on Wednesdays, but it's 11 to 2 Eastern on Sirius, Sirius 108 XM98.
Oh, we got another caller.
Oh, great.
Hi, caller.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you guys?
We're doing well. Do you have a question for Jim?
Yeah, I wanted to know what Frank's fart smelled like.
Boy, do I wish I hadn't brought that one up. That's
Inquiring minds
a pretty lethal question. Yeah.
Depends if he has dairy the night before.
Yeah.
Frank will never have us on his show.
I know. I'm sorry, Frank, if you're watching this. But you know what? We say much worse on his show. So tune in on Sirius. You'll hear all about it, I promise.
God bless him. And Jim, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much
for bringing us. And this is the Q Guide to Golden Girls. Jim Colucci is the writer. And you definitely want to check it out.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Give me that back. I don't have too many of them myself. Give me that.
Now get the hell out of here.
Right.
We got someone else coming on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Spending the time.